Hey guys, so this is the part 3 of 6.1, solving equations using inverse operations. So last question we left off on was the r divided by 4 plus 3 equals 7.2. We solved using an arrow diagram, we solved algebraically, and then we verified our answer. So we're going to move on to the next question here. So this is more so of a word problem. But this one says a rectangle has a length of 3.7 and a perimeter of 13.2. Write an equation to find the width, solve for your equation, and verify your answer. So the important thing, or the more difficult part here, is taking this phrase, this little word sentence, and making that into an equation. So for that, you need to kind of pull apart the important information, right? So you have a rectangle, right? Length of 3.7. So if I was to draw this, I would have a rectangle. Oops. And that rectangle has a length of 3.7. Okay? A length of 3.7. So remember that in a rectangle, these two sides are the same, and then these two sides are the same. So if this is 3.7 here, then this side has to be 3.7. So a rectangle has the length of 3.7 and a perimeter of 13.2. So perimeter. What does perimeter mean? So what perimeter means is this side plus this side plus this side plus this side, right? So it's talking about the distance around the rectangle, right? So I don't know the width. I'm not sure what the width is of this rectangle. That's what I'm trying to find, right? So I'm not sure what the width is. So what can I use to represent a value that I don't know? I can use a variable, right? So I'm going to represent the width using the variable x, okay? So then if I was to look at this, okay, and if I was to add everything together, I would have x plus 3.7 plus x plus 3.7. So I could actually write this in a couple different ways, right? I could write it as 2x plus 3.7, right? Because I have x plus 3.7 twice, right? I could also write it using the expanded form of this, which would be 2 times x, 2x, right? X plus x, if I combine like terms, plus 3.7 times 2, or 3.7 plus 3.7. That would give me 7.4. So I could write the equation like this, 2x plus 7.4, or I could write it like this, 2, and then in brackets, x plus 3.7. So for this, I'm going to use 2x plus 3.7 equals 13.2, because that's what the perimeter is, right? So if we're solving this, we need to expand it anyways. So we're still going to need the 2x plus 7.4 equals what the perimeter is, which is 13.2. So I could solve this algebraically, or I could solve this using an arrow diagram. So if I was drawing the arrow diagram, I would have 2x plus 7.4 equals 13.2. And this is a two-step equation. So x, the first thing I'm going to do is times it by 2, right? Because multiplication and division comes first. That gives me 2x. Then I added 7.4 to get 2x plus 7.4. So these arrows down here are going to have the opposite. So in order to find what x is equal to, I need to do the opposite operation of what I did up here. So instead of adding, I'm going to subtract 7.4. And instead of timesing by 2, I'm going to divide by 2. Okay, so now I'm going to go this way and find out what x is equal to. So I'm going to take 13.2 and I'm going to subtract 7.4. That gives me 5.8. Now I'm going to take 5.8 and I'm going to divide it by 2. My x is going to equal 2.9. So if I was to solve this algebraically, I would have to expand this first to make it 2x plus 7.4 equals 13.2, right? 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 3.7, 7.4. So then I'm going to get rid of any addition or subtraction first. So instead of adding 7.4, I'm going to subtract 7.4 from both sides. Okay? This cancels out, and 13.2 minus 7.4 gives me 5.8. And now I'm left with 2x equals 5.8. So 2 is being multiplied by x here. So in order to get rid of the 2 to isolate x, I need to do the opposite. So instead of multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Because what I do to one side, I need to do to the other. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it cancels out. I'm left with x. 5.8 divided by 2 gives me 2.9. So our width of this rectangle, if I go back up here, it's going to be 2.9. So now we're going to verify our answer, all right? So if I go back to my original equation, which was 2x plus 3.7 equals 13.2. I'm just going to write that better so you guys can see it here. So if I add 2, then times x plus 3.7 equals 13.2. And then I'm going to plug in the answer I got. So the answer I got was, of course, 2.9, right? So 2.9 plus 3.7. And I'm going to see if I get 13.2. All right, so first I got to do inside the brackets. So 2.9 plus 3.7 gives me 6.6. Now 6.6 times 2 is 13.2. So if the left side equals the right side, then my answer is right. So because the left-hand side equals the right-hand side. So my answer is correct. So that's verifying your answer. All right, next question. So we just did that one. All right, so here's another one. 7% of a number is 56.7. So if you guys remember percents from grade 8, when we're doing percent of a number, of means multiplication, right? Okay, so 7%. of a number. So 7% of a number. So I'm going to use n. So remember, we don't use 7%. We got to convert that to a decimal, right? And we go from percent to decimal by dividing by 100, right? So that would actually be 0.07. 7% as a decimal would be 0.07. 7% of, which means multiplication, of a number is 56.7. And of course, I don't have to write this multiplication here. I could simply just write it like 0.07x or 0.07n equals 56.7. So just like that, 0.07n equals 56.7. So now in order to solve for n, I got to get rid of this 0.07, which is being multiplied by n. So I got to do the opposite operation. Opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 0.07. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other, right? So whatever I do on the left side, I got to do on the right side as well to keep it balanced. So 0.7 divided by 0.7 gives us 1. We're left with 1n, or just n. And 56.7 divided by 0.07 is 810. So the number that we took 7% of was 810. Now you can verify, right, by plugging the number back into the equation. 810 times 0.07, and you would get 56.7. So the left-hand side equals the right-hand side. So then that shows you that your answer is correct. All right, so that's pretty much the lesson for 6.1. I want you guys to work on these questions on page 271, questions 5 to 11. Those work on mainly arrow diagrams. 13 and 15 work on writing the equations and solving them. So for these ones, I believe you get to choose whether you want to use the arrow diagram or solve algebraically. And then 19 is a word problem. Okay, so please go through this, work on the questions, and then tomorrow, if you guys have questions, let's log on at 10 o'clock and I can answer any questions that you guys might have. Okay, hope everyone's well.